Today, then, we are going to finish our discussion of Enrique's journey. We have scheduled 3 presentations. Austin will begin, Reese should continue, and Mackenzie finish the presentations on this book by Sonia Nazario. Before we do that, before we start with the presentations, I would like to share my screen and show you what is coming up. As always, also, please go to Moodle and make sure that you take a look at the course pages and you know exactly what is happening throughout the week. Let me see if I can find, here we go. So for next week's, for next week, we have the new book. I'll show it to you. We need to, I hope you can see it. I hope you can see it there. So we need to, yes, we did begin with Central American migrants. And because we cannot dissociate the Latinx communities in the States from what is happening to migrants, in my view, coming from Central America and Mexico, and even I would say Africa. There is a perspective, there is a view on Latinx communities that joins together migration and residents and citizens of the United States. So now we will go over the next chapter, and we'll see what happens with those who, what can these voices, what can writers tell us about those communities who have been here and who, these communities that are integral part, essential part of what to be in America is all about. And so I'm asking you to go over Martita Morales, The Sound of 6th Street, Jose Torres, A Letter to a Child Like Me, and also something else. Notice it says, Suso, read chapter 2.3, Free Speech. And I give you the link. This is a book on internet that focuses on public speaking. The topic for the week, because I think it's important for us before you start with your persuasive speeches, is free speech. Free speech. What does that mean? I think it's important for the class. So that's why I'm assigning that short chapter from that. And you have the link right there, right? And also a lengthier task for you to watch this documentary on the new Latinos, because I found that they explore the realities of Puerto Ricans as well in this video. And you have your work for Wednesday and for Friday stated in there, okay? Any questions? So we will start talking about the Puerto Rican community and this book, Boricuas. Notice there is a forum also for next week on the Boricuas book. Okay. So we are still at chapter 7, which is the last chapter for the book. And our first presenter, Austin, begins at page 218. Let me go to the page. The title for that segment is Honduras. Honduras. And the chapter actually goes wavers between Honduras and the United States. So we we're continuously looking at what is happening in Honduras and what is happening in the States with those who are in the States, such as Lourdes and also Enrique. And so we have a family that is growing in the United States, but we also have family that is living their lives, right? And exploring new realities, dealing with children, dealing with relationships that take place mostly over the phone, and not very frequently. Besides, as we found out, if you read well the chapters, the connection seems to disappear at times. Okay, and children also are growing up, and it seems that at the end of the book, Nazario is focusing on one character mainly, I would say, and that character is Maria Isabel. And the question she's posing to us lengthily, throughout this chapter is, or this section of the chapter is, what will Maria Isabel do? What will she do? What will be her final decision? And also, if she makes a decision at the end of the chapter, why is she making that kind of decision? Okay, so as I was reading the last chapter, I was thinking to myself, so this is what Nazario is doing. She's giving us a lengthy description of what happens in the life of Maria Isabel, right? To lead us to that final decision, okay? And how come that decision takes place? So, Austin, you have the floor. Let me just take the time here so that you can begin. Please go ahead.
Okay, so like the beginning of the section, it starts out with like Enrique talking about, because he was like drinking and doing a lot of drugs, and he just talks about how he's trying to change, and he's like slowly cutting back on alcohol and marijuana, and he like plans on saving $50,000 to buy a house. So for him and Maria Isabel, and then he plans on hiring a smuggler to take her to the United States, so he can marry her and be with his kid. And then it continues on in the next section where it's like called Unglued. It starts talking about Lord's sister Marion, and she says how she's describing how she's struggling in Honduras because like she can't afford to feed her kids, to buy them stuff for school, like I think they said like paper or something, and like how she wants to come to the United States so for a few years so she can like basically do the same thing Lourdes did, but she wants to come back so she can have money. And then it continues on talking about how Enrique and Maria Isabella's relationship is becoming more distant because like Enrique's sending less money because he wanted to move out from his mom's apartment and have more freedom, so he decides to like rent a room in a trailer. So he actually has less money now, and he was getting in trouble with the police for, I don't know if it specifically stated what he did, but he had to pay like fines and stuff, and he has to make his truck payment, and so he's unable to like send all the money that Maria Isabella is used to him sending. So she is thinking that he has another girlfriend in the United States who he's spending all his money on. So they begin to become more distant, and like yeah. And then it continues on talking about Miriam, and I think it said she went to the United States, and that she is even beginning to become more distant from her family. Like it's been a few years, and like she hasn't came back, and like their relationships all over the phone, and it's only when they can call.
Who's Miriam?
Miriam is Lord's sister. Well, let's see. Yeah, and it just talks about how she's sending stuff to her kids, but she's still becoming more distant, and like they begin to see her less as their mother and just more as like I think they said an aunt. They called her their aunt, and it's just how like the relationship's just becoming more strained and because of the distance and stuff. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I found two segments important. One, it's on page 219. I cannot stand the situation anymore. Miriam tells Belky, she wants to go to the United States. She'll just go long enough to save money to fix up her mother's house and add on a room for her own beauty parlor. She'll go for a few years and return before her children miss her much. They would notice the last sentence of the paragraph. They won't feel abandoned. And I keep thinking that if you're going to make such a decision, to leave, you need to give yourself a reason, even though you know that may be not necessarily a sound reason, but you need to come up with an explanation for yourself, because if not, the decision may destroy you or something like that,
Yeah.
take you to a real deep crisis. So they will not feel abandoned. We know they will feel abandoned, but she needs to find a reason for her to make a decision, right? The second segment that I thought it was important, Austin, was on page 221, because they give us a detailed explanation as to the expenses and earnings of Enrique. Okay, I haven't found anything like that before, I think, in the book, and it gives us a pretty good description as to how much he needs to work for something and how difficult it is to get the money for that and how much he needs to pay for things maybe, okay? On page 221, as you were talking about the trailer, right? So rent on his share of the trailer and utilities is $280, which is already a good amount.
Yeah, and he has to pay his mom for food because he eats dinner at her house every night.
Now the payments on his used pickup truck and insurance ran $580 a month. Come on, for an undocumented person living in this, shaky kind of status, and then 200 more in gas, and then his cell phone is 50 a month. Come on, they're piling up the money on Enrique. Okay, more and more. And he gives his mother 200 a month, as you were saying, for lunch and dinner. And fixed costs eat up more than half of the 2,400 to 2,600 a month he makes. So, Austin, what do you think were Enrique's expectations, and what do you think are people's expectations when they are looking at working in the United States and the life?
Well, I think when they try to get here, they expect to make a lot of money, but like it's hard especially when they're undocumented, because they can only find work where people will accept undocumented people. So it's really hard, and they have to accept pretty much whatever wage they can get, because a lot of the time, if they come here and work, the bosses aren't going to be fair to them because they know they can just threaten them by saying they'll call whatever INS or whatever. So they'd have to work for pretty much nothing, but they need to work to survive.
Yes, so their job situation is very unstable, totally unstable, right? As you're describing it. But one basic thing that this segment, tells me about their expectations is that because, again, say in Honduras, a person may make $4 a day, okay, and that's what they get. That if they think of a monthly amount of say $3,000, that's a humongous amount of money, huge amount of money. And so they translate that situation into the Honduras situation, and they may think, oh, that's gonna be a lot of money that I can use for different purposes. But once, as you're saying, they start working here and getting these kinds of jobs, yes, compared to what they may have been doing in Honduras, it's a lot of money. But life in the United States is expensive.
Yeah.
It's expensive. And if you all have been, from time to time getting a job, summer job, or a job from time to time, or you currently, have a job, you know how much that money costs you in terms of energy and effort and all you have to do. And how much, you, what can you use that money for, right? Some saving, something that you like, and so on and so forth. So I just want to repeat myself in that regard, okay? One thing is the expectations, and another thing is the reality once they start working here in the United States. And we need to be clear about that. I think we need to be clear about that. We need to highlight it. Okay, thanks a lot, Austin. Is Reese here? Because I did not see her name, and I don't think I see. And she was to present right now. She had from 224 to page 231. Reese, I'll say her name again. When this is at the beginning of the segment, we have Miriam. Miriam in the US. And she's telling herself a different story, storytelling, saying, I'll stay here in the States for only a few years and then I'll come back. And she's trying to make sure not to like her situation here in the States. By not paying attention to the reality that surrounds her. Okay, I'm just gonna work and get my money and help the money, send the money over, and I'll be done and I'll be able to. So this may be also a way of thinking for migrants, okay? For sure, this is for a short period of time and I'll be able to come back, okay? To go back. Then we have the situation between Jasmine and one uncle, or no, page, the relationship is over the phone, right? Between Enrique and Jasmine, Jasmine in Spanish, Jasmine. And although Jasmine is saying, I love you, Dad, we know that that connection is getting looser and looser because the child is not actually looking at her father, right? And besides, Enrique has said before that maybe Marisabel is telling Jasmine to say things like, you are my daddy and I love you, but there is no real connection because of the reality. So Jasmine turns 3, and they have a very tight connection between Maria Isabel and Jasmine when she needs to go off to work, right? And she comes back. But Maria Isabel is a very good mother, it seems, as she's being portrayed here, because she takes care of the daily life of Jasmine. She's all the time with her. She plays with her. She feeds her. She makes sure that she kind of has, this normalcy, sense of normalcy, because she's Jasmine with her mom. Um, then what this was a page that was important to me, page 227. How many of you have heard about this word, maquiladoras? Have you heard about this word, maquiladoras, maquila? These are kind of sweatshops that they put together on the Mexican side of the border, lots of them, okay, lots of factories of this kind. And mostly the workers are women, by the way, young women, okay? So those works were exported to Mexico, and as you know, over most likely to China as well. Okay, very low paying jobs, and as the page 227 explains it, right? There is an example of what people do, and also something that I wanted you to be aware of. Okay, on page 227, we find out that if you are like 25, 27 years old, you're already old for the market. Can you believe that? I mean, I thought that was an important sentence. If you are 20, say 25, 27, 28, as a woman, you are already old for many, many of the jobs that she can get. So that's why somebody tells her, oh, you can do this kind of job. But the job is truly repetitive and meaningless, okay? And you keep doing the same over and over every day. On page 227, it says, and this is the example, young women sit in rows behind sewing machines, furiously stitching medical scraps for export to the United States. One woman sews a triangle at the bottom of the neck. Notice how many times. She does it 2,520 times a day, 44 hours a week, for $100, $10 a month. Okay. So that's the reality of maquiladoras. But more importantly, that's the reality of many women, young women, right? That deserve a better future, and especially because they can contribute to their country, to their local communities, as you know. Now, one could argue, as economists have done it, one could ask oneself this question, who contributes more? Or in what sense, right? Women or men? To their families, to their local communities, to create, this fabric of people working together, making a community a reality. Who does it? Well, they have found out that women play an essential role to keep things together. And when they are not around, right, the fabric disappears. It breaks down. It breaks down. So the book is also telling us something about that precisely, right? When women are leaving, exiting their country, okay? Because they keep the nucleus, right? Families and not only families, but I like to say local communities going. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I wanted to highlight right here. Next, I think Jasmine starts calling Daddy this uncle Miguel, and she also starts helping him out, okay? Because he's working next door, building a house for the family. And so this is to tell us, obviously, that Jasmine is just losing that connection to a ghost, because Enrique has become a ghost for her. Then I'll stop right there, I guess, if there is something else that is important. I think I should leave it right there. Um, how many more minutes do we have? Um, I I want to make sure to move on, so I'll let Mackenzie present. Try the mic to see if we can hear you. Say something.
Okay, can I start?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the segment that I had started off talking about how the life is in the 3-bedroom apartment in North Carolina, and Enrique describes it as that they're jammed into the apartment and the men don't help at all. So the floors are always dirty and the garbage is never taken out. He talks about how his mother cooks and cleans for everyone, and on Sundays she even does everyone's laundry, and on Saturday she does all the grocery shopping. One night in the apartment, Enrique and a friend are talking about gangs in Honduras, and his mother says that Honduras is one of the holiest place she'll never go back. And Enrique kind of questions this and asks why she dislikes it so much, and this leads to another fight. And this leads to the third time that Enrique accuses his mother of abandonment. Um, he says that his real mother is his grandmother. And on page 232, at the top, it says he tells her his true mother is his grandmother. Enrique has hung a picture of the Last Supper above the headboard of his bed. It reminds him of her. So this was kind of showing again the importance of pictures and how they're kind of there as memories and to represent family that they don't have around them anymore.
Yes.
So after this argument, Enrique's mother's boyfriend suggests that they distance themselves so it ends the fighting, and she kind of takes his advice and distances herself from him. Like, she doesn't serve him food, but she makes it still for him. She stops doing his laundry, and they don't spend time together anymore on the weekend like they used to. As the new year comes along, his mom decides to leave North Carolina and go to Florida because the factory that all the men are working in are cutting hours. So they decide to move, and Enrique doesn't like this, and he wants to go back to North Carolina because he misses his friends, and he says that he has to get up before dawn for his new job, which he also doesn't like. Enrique's mom's sister thinks about going back to Honduras to her children. Enrique constantly nags her and asks, why abandon your children like this? After fights with his mom, he always goes to his mom's sister and says, this is what it'll be like with your children because you abandoned them if you don't go back to them soon.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, Enrique and his mom start to get along, but he still ends up moving back to North Carolina, and his mom stays in Florida. Enrique's mom prays to get her papers so she can move, so she can have her daughter come over to the States with her.
Mm-hmm.
In North Carolina, Enrique focuses on saving money and cutting down on drinking and doing drugs. His new focus is convincing his girlfriend to make the journey to the States. She has been stalling this process, though, and Enrique becomes irritated with her about it. He wants her to come over so they can collectively save up money to have their daughter smuggled over. He thinks that if he doesn't see his daughter soon, then she won't think of him as a father, and he doesn't want them to have the relationship that him and his mother have. He wants to have a better relationship with her. Enrique quickly learns that he won't be getting an apology from his
Um,
mother for her towards her. And an example of this in the book is that for her birthday, he sends her $100. And they're now calling each other a couple times a week, and he starts to make plans to move back to Florida to be closer to her. And at the end, it says Enrique's mom believes that God is answering some of her prayers, like when she was praying for Enrique to straighten up and stop drinking and doing drugs and be close to her again.
what was your cultural connection?
When Enrique is nagging his aunt about sending his children back over, and when he talks about not having a connection with his daughter because he's over here in the States, I think it's kind of just like a big circle that everyone runs around in, because it happens all the time when mothers come over to the States and they don't have a connection to their kids anymore, and it just keeps happening.
Yeah, it's like the story keeps repeating itself. So Sonia Nazario has to trace that cycle from beginning to end. Cycle, cycle, cycle. Yes. Let me see if there was something else. Yeah, I had a basic question about the apology. Why do you think he needed what did he need an apology for?
He believed that he needed an apology from her her abandoning him in Honduras and moving to the States, but he learned that he wasn't going to get that from her.
Yeah, so I think some healing is happening after all.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, for him to mature, he has to understand the situation of his mother, and it seems that it finally is happening. Because there are some things that he may ask from her, but he needs to realize there are plenty of things she won't be able to give him. And so, well, this could be, you know, part also of any person's maturation in dealing, in fact, with the facts and reality and deciding we need to move forward and also contribute to a positive relationship. So I think that was a very important moment in the book, okay, in the segment that you were describing. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mackenzie. So the book will finish, of course, how? Bree, how does the book finish? No answer. I'm going to say, Jake, how does the book end? I'm going to give one more person a chance before Marlo. Alicia, how does the book end? No answer. Marlo, go ahead.
At the end, Belki is in the States, and then but Lourdes, she goes back to Honduras at the very end, right?
I did not see Lourdes going back to Honduras. Actually, she was saying, I will never go back to Honduras. I really think that that's a lawless, no law, right? Lawless place. And Enrique's trying to tell Lourdes, but that's your country, you know? Why are you saying that about your country? What else did you say, Marlo?
I said, wait, on the last page it says she gives, oh, wait, does Belky go back to Honduras? Because at the end it says that she boards the airplane back to Honduras.
No, the chapter ends with Maria Isabel finally leaving Honduras. It's Maria Isabel who lives in Honduras. That's what I have on page 239 to 40.
247?
239 to 40. That's what I have.
Oh, wait. What about, a mother's embrace? It's not that?
Mother's embrace, I don't have that. Maybe our chapter is a bit different because of our editions.
Okay.
Okay, but what I have is it's Maria Isabel leaving for well, she might not think for good. Okay, so maybe Sonia Nazario added more, Marlo. Okay, but in this edition that I do have, it just says Maria Isabel leaves, and perhaps we were waiting for her not to leave, because she was saying before, you know, no, I stick to my daughter, I stick to my situation, I'll make a living here in Honduras. But then, as Mackenzie was saying, the cycle repeats. Okay, I do have a couple of things. We have some minutes left. I was looking for pictures of maybe Central American migrants, and I was able to find something very interesting. I think, let me see. This here. As you know, we were commenting on the pictures that are included in the book. Now, if you take a look at the first pages in the book, you will find the name of the photographer. We did not say anything about the name, the photographer who took those pictures, because it wasn't Sonia Nazario. And here you have the name, okay? And here you have, I hope this is working well for me. Yes. His name is Don, and I don't want to say, don't want to say his name. I'll read it to you from the book. His name is Don Barletti, and he's a. You know that we have different types of photographers. Well, in this case, this person is a photojournalist. Okay, and he took the pictures for Enrique's journey, and he got a Pulitzer Award. Here we go. I hope not to show very disturbing pictures to you, okay? It's not my intention. I just want you to realize the quality of the pictures and how important this work was.
For the sake of Enrique's journey, Enrique Peralta lived in Tegucigalpa, and he was raised by his grandmother because his mother came to Los Angeles and then moved to North Carolina. Enrique, when he grew up, when he was 17, he said, I want to find my mother, see if she still loves me. So his grandmother gave him all the money she had, $17. Well, this is a moment, and a moment in photojournalism is an unexpected thing that happens that has storytelling qualities. I mean, the cat is asleep in Enrique's chair where he used to sit, and the grandmother is just frowning. They say pictures are worth 1,000 words. Well, a picture and 1,000 words are really priceless. I try to show interfaces like writers will use paragraphs to transition a scene. Well, the river here separates Guatemala in the background from southern Mexico in the foreground. I rode across on one of these rafts. They're illegally going around the Mexican Migra, ferrying across for 50 cents a person. It was important for me to try to describe what's next. These children are tracing the black lines on a Mexican map, the route of the freight trains through Mexico. And this was a risky venture for me because the gangsters were around all the time trying to rob these kids. But not only the gangsters, but the policemen, the Mexican Border Patrol, locals, everybody was robbing these poor kids, and they were scared to death. And I was scared because I'm walking around like a tourist with 2 cameras. But I knew how to hide them. I had a backpack when I sensed danger. Now, I had a list of things I needed to shoot, and this is always a good idea. It's not a script, but the things I didn't want to forget. Most things were obvious. Well, getting on the train, getting off the train, riding the train, being thirsty. I kept a running tally of things I didn't want to miss. I didn't expect this one, riding on top of the train, my first day, when these branches come across like machetes. Kids have been knocked clear off the train. But there was a warning that they had. They would yell out, Rama, 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 which means branch. So I'm running with this boy on the right in the foreground, 12-year-old Dennis. You're going to see Dennis more. This was another moment, looking down at a man who I couldn't tell if he was screaming or crying or praying. But the train was slowing down. And Dennis, who had made that trip before, said the migra is up ahead. When it slows down, everybody jumps off. The second time I came through the same route, the train stopped somewhere else. And everybody started running across the top of the train. But this guy sitting there told me, there's no problem up ahead. It's a switching stop. But migrants were always on the move. And this was an unexpected thing, not on my list. What was on my list was how dangerous it can be to ride the iron beast. La Bestia, they call it. See how this guy's leg is hanging down? That's exactly what happened when the train rocked back and forth violently, and it's as hot as a freaking frying pan, greasy. Migrants will fall off and their legs will slide beneath the wheels. Well, on my list was to go to Red Cross shelters along the freight route. Mercifully, I never saw anybody fall off and get run over, but the image of this parents coming to collect their poor son with his leg and foot cut off was an important part of the story to illustrate the danger. Once again, I'm in a room talking to the parents. My biggest friend is not the camera, it's not the film in this case, it's time. You can disarm people if they trust you, if they believe you really care, and I did. Another thing on my list was the food throwers of Veracruz. Poor people on the sides of the tracks will throw produce and tortillas and sweaters and water bottles at the people on the speeding freight train. Remember what I said, substance and style? This picture is why I do photojournalism. It has both things.
I think this is a really great picture. It tells you a whole story, just by showing you the hands and the fruit from one side to the other.
Substance is the gift, crystal clear, fair bit of luck. And the style is my choice of a slow shutter speed to pan with the speeding freight car. As was this picture. A moment I didn't expect when 2 kids ran out through a coffee plantation, started racing the freight train. I instinctively said, okay, now I can pan with this, because they were going the same speed as I was. They were galloping next to the train. So slow shutter speed, I got 5 pictures, 4 blurry ones, and by the grace of God, this was a perfect. This is blown up about 20 feet wide in the museum, which is a museum to journalism in Washington, D.C.
And I think he was very fortunate to capture that moment and the freedom of the